Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something core to business, but honestly, it always feels like a bit of a moving target. We're talking about understanding you, the consumer, and specifically your preferences.
hmm And we're using an article from Cognitive Market Research called What is Consumer Preference and Why It is Important as our main source today.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack what this source tells us. What exactly are consumer preferences today?
Why are they so critical? Absolutely crucial for businesses, especially now.
Yeah, and how are they changing? Because they are changing fast.
Definitely. And crucially, how can businesses, use the insights from market research, as the source suggests, to actually adapt and, well, keep up?
That fast-paced world context you mentioned is key here, isn't it? The article really sets the scene, this complex, omni-channel digital landscape.
Yeah, things aren't just shifting, they're accelerating.
Right.
The source points fingers at, well, not fingers exactly, but identifies the COVID-19 pandemic and all the ongoing digital transformation as big drivers.
Big drivers, absolutely.
And the article argues pretty strongly that purchasing behaviors have fundamentally changed. It gives this really striking example.
Oh, yeah.
Baby boomers, maybe a group you'd associate more with traditional shopping,
Mm-hmm.
their online shopping has jumped by about 50% since the pandemic began.
50%, wow.
Yeah. Think about that. A 50% shift online for like a whole generation in just a handful of years.
That single stat really drives the point home, doesn't it?
It does.
Even if you think, okay, I know my customers, these preferences, they're just not set in stone. They're super dynamic. The ground is definitely shifting underfoot.
So, okay, let's dig into what actually shapes these preferences then. The source lays out several key things that influence the tastes and choices that, ultimately lead us to buy something.
Right.
It's kind of a mix, really. Your personal needs, cultural background, your values, lifestyle, and, of course, your past experiences play a big role,
Yeah.
good or bad.
And it's not just one single thing people prefer, is it? The article breaks preferences down into different dimensions.
Exactly.
Like it could be specific product feature size, maybe color, how it works, functionality.
Like how sensitive you are to price. Are you always hunting for a bargain?
Or are you okay pinning a bit more for, say, quality you perceive, or maybe a brand you really trust?
Which, yeah, ties right into brand loyalty. That trust, that satisfaction from before.
Where you shop, that's huge now, in-store versus online, or maybe a mix.
Then there's the ethical side, which the article highlights as increasingly important. Does this company's approach, maybe on sustainability, line up with your own values?
And maybe above all, for many people today, that desire for convenience, fast delivery, platforms that are just easy to use.
Right. So it's this really complex web of factors, all these different dimensions coming together.
Influencing every single time we decide to buy something.
Okay, so given it's that complex and changing all the time, why is understanding it not just like nice to have, but absolutely crucial for businesses, according to the source anyway?
Well, I mean, the most basic level is pretty clear, right? Preferences directly influence whether people buy your stuff or not.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Get it right, they buy.
Yeah.
It's the mark, they walk. It hits the bottom line. Directly impacts success or failure.
But the source digs a bit deeper. It says understanding preferences lets businesses go beyond just generic stuff.
Ah, right. Tailoring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can really tailor products, services, even their marketing messages so they actually resonate with what customers, genuinely want and need.
And the reward for getting that tailoring right, higher customer satisfaction. The source connects that straight to loyalty, repeat business. And that's the engine for long-term growth, isn't it? Not just constantly chasing new sales.
And it pushes innovation, too. If you're really listening to what people are starting to want, you can spot trends early.
Anticipate them, yeah.
Yeah, and introduce new things that capture those shifts, maybe even get ahead of the competition.
Precisely. Knowing what people really prioritize. Is it price right now? Is it quality? Is it that convenience factor we keep mentioning?
Or maybe sustainability is top for a key segment.
Exactly. Knowing that allows companies to stand out, to differentiate themselves in what's often a very crowded market, gain that competitive edge.
Which all kind of loops back to the need to constantly adapt.
Yeah, you can't rest on your laurels.
Not in a market that's always evolving. The source is pretty clear. Businesses that aren't actively tracking and responding to preference shifts, they risk just becoming irrelevant.
Okay, so preferences are complex, they're critical, they're dynamic. The article then does something helpful. It breaks down different types of preferences, puts a bit more structure on it.
Yeah, it helps categorize things. Should we walk through those?
Let's do it. What's first?
First up, convenience preferences. Now, this isn't always number one for everyone, but for a lot of people, ease and speed are just, well, paramount.
Makes sense. What's the example?
The source uses the example of choosing between two online stores selling the same thing. If one offers much faster shipping, that convenience might be the deciding factor.
Okay, straightforward enough. What's next?
Effort preferences. This one's interesting. It's about how much energy, how much effort you're willing to put into something.
Okay, like?
Well, the article contrasts someone who, say, really enjoys baking from scratch, they like the effort, the process,
Right.
versus someone who wants simplicity, minimum effort, so they reach for the pre-made cake mix. Both valid preferences, just different effort levels.
Got it.
Next, a really big one today, UX preferences, user experience.
Yeah, how we interact with tech.
Exactly. Software, websites, apps. Some people prefer a really simple, clean, straightforward interface. Easy to learn, easy to use.
Like me, probably.
Maybe. While others, maybe doing more complex stuff, might actually prefer something more advanced, packed with features, even if it takes longer to figure out.
Okay, makes sense. Then there are sensory preferences.
Yes, critical in certain industries. This is all about taste, smell, look, feel.
Obvious for food and drink, I guess.
Absolutely. Taste and smell are primary drivers there.
Yeah.
But the source also mentions its role in things like packaging design.
No, it looks on the shelf, yeah.
Or even how colors and sounds used in an ad campaign make you feel. It's all sensory input.
Right. What else? Value-based preferences.
Definitely seeing a rise here. Consumers are increasingly looking at the values and ethics of the brand itself.
Beyond just the product.
Way beyond. The source notes that if a brand aligns with your personal values, maybe on sustainability or ethical sourcing, that can heavily influence your choice.
People seeking out brands with a purpose they connect with.
Exactly. Then there's customer experience preferences. This is broader.
The whole journey.
The whole journey, from when you first hear about a brand through the buying process, right to any after-sales support. It's about consistency, ease of interaction. Did they meet your expectations overall?
A good overall experience builds that loyalty we talked about.
It really does. And finally, related but slightly different, service preferences.
How you like your customer service served up.
Pretty much. Some people really value that friendly, personalized, human touch. Others, they just want speed and efficiency. Get my problem solved quickly, effectively. Less chat, more action.
Wow, okay. That really breaks it down. So many different angles to consider for preferences.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. So with all these facets and the constant change, how does a business actually, keep a pulse on this? How do they use this info?
Well, this is where the article brings in market research as the sort of essential tool.
Right, makes sense.
Market research using both primary data, stuff you collect yourself, and secondary data that's already out there. That's what gives businesses the insights they need to actually understand these preferences.
And that understanding lets them make informed decisions.
Informed decisions that hopefully actually satisfy customers, which the article points out leads to a better return on investment in the end.
And the source specifically mentions primary research, like custom studies, being really valuable for a company's specific questions, right?
Yeah, because it gets right to the heart of their audience, their specific challenges. It's tailored.
Okay.
And to make that research even more effective, the article brings up market segmentation.
Grouping people.
Exactly. Taking your broader target market and splitting it into smaller groups based on shared characteristics.
That's shared preferences, crucially.
That's the key part. By creating these distinct segments, you can assign typical preferences to each group.
And that lets you target them more effectively.
Much more effectively. The source argues that targeting specific segments with research, with marketing, is just more focused, more relevant, and ultimately more successful than trying a one-size-fits-all approach to a huge, diverse audience.
So it's really the combination then. Understanding all these different types of preferences we talked about. And then actively using tools like market research and segmentation to figure out who prefers what and why.
That seems to be the core message from the source. Yeah. Consumer preferences are Well, they're complicated, they're dynamic forces.
Constantly being shaped by personal stuff, but also big global events like the pandemic we mentioned, all these tech shifts.
And businesses don't just, get advised to understand these things, from simple convenience to really deep values. The source implies they must understand them to survive and thrive.
And not just understand, but actively use the tools.
Hmm.
Market research, segmentation.
To track changes, yeah, but also maybe even anticipate them. Adapt the strategy, stay relevant.
Because paying attention to preferences, it's not just like a sales tactic. It's fundamental to grasping the market dynamics you're actually operating in.
Totally. It's how you build stronger relationships, drive innovation that actually matters to people, and really ensure you're viable long term in a world where what customers expect is always, always changing.
Okay, so wrapping this up, thinking about all those different types of preferences we unpacked, convenience, effort, UX, sensory, value-based, customer experience, service, maybe take a second to think, which of those do you find yourself putting top of the list most often when you're buying something?
Good question.
And then maybe consider, why might that be the case for others too? How does your own prioritization maybe reflect those bigger market shifts the article is talking about? Something to mull over.